Good afternoon, all. I welcome all the participants on behalf of KCG College of Technology and ECE Department to the webinar on challenges and opportunities of emerging technology for VLSI. I'm very happy to welcome our alumnus and introduce him also. It is our alumnus of 2008 pass out batch, Dr. Pandiyarajan. I welcome you, Pandiyarajan. It's my pleasure to have you here. He is a professor in the Faculty of Electronics and Communication Engineering in Indian Institute of Information Technology Design, Kanchipuram. He has completed his PhD in National University Corporation, Shizuoka University, Japan, and postdoctoral research in nanoelectronics and energy devices, KAIST, South Korea. He has many number of publications in which there are 31 high impact factor international journals, and he has presented several papers in national and international conferences. He is a visiting professor in various universities in India and abroad. Many awards he has received, notably Leading Scientist Award in 2018, Inspire Award from Government of India in February 2018, and so on. With this introduction, I'm very happy to welcome our alumnus, Dr. Pandiyarajan, to start with this presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. So,
Welcome, Pandiyarajan.
thank you.
And
So,
one more thing, everybody please post your queries in question and answer box that is there provided below.
okay. So, so I was a passed out, as ma'am said. So 2008 passed out in KCG College of Technology. So then now today we're going to talk about challenges and opportunities of emerging technology for VLSI. So it's like not like the regular syllabus what we have in the curriculum. Supporting of that, how the VLSI technology trending was done, and how the trending tends to what are the various challenges is happening. So when we talk about emerging technology, so why the emerging technology is needed is we're going for current trending is like a flexible electronics or the wearable electronics day-to-day life. So why the reason is spreading widely throughout the area. There is the body mounted or watches. Example, if we take a watches or healthcare devices, which is very closely blended with the surface. So that is the reason the upcoming technology was going on the flexible and the wearable based. So how the rolling over there in VLSI in that. So that is what the today's session we're going to see about. And the outline of the presentation is we start from the technology trending. So what are the technology trending like starts from the Moore's law and then followed with the technology, how the Moore's law over that. Still, there is still many people keep on says now the Moore's law is not exist. So whether the Moore's law is there or not. So that we're going to see, and followed with that, what is the design challenges of technology scaling? There is a fabrication process like technology development in the lithography techniques. What is the lithography? What are types of lithography techniques which we have solved those in. Then followed with that, we're going to see about the power management. So power management, the sense like we have a multi-core processors right now. So each processor is not required the same power rating. It differs based on the parallel processing. So that how it's done. And the emerging technology. So the current technology which the people are using for fabricating or to develop the devices, then followed with that. So how more important for wearable and flexible electronics, what are the categories it's involved, and followed with that our lab, what we doing. So if you see this image, we can see like bigger is more olden days when we talk about bigger is very technology adaptation thing. But nowadays when we talk about the latest technologies and the enabled ones, it's like the smaller is more comfortable than the bigger one. For example, if we take it the previous cases like TVs or the computers, so it's a huge in size. But now we have a foldable and flexible smart mobile phones and the tablets, everything, which are all the very comfortable for the user interface. So based on the end users, so the comfort is more relevant. Based on that, the technology evolution was coming up. And when you talk about the Moore's law, so Moore's law have two laws which says about, the first law says about well-known, we know that what is this, like every 18 to 24 months doubles the transistor. But the second law says about the cost also it's keep on increasing. But this Moore's law is always talk about the single processor, not on the multi-core processors, not on the multi-level processors. So that is not on the parallelism. So when the parallel data analysis is taking place, so it's not considered like a multi-threading, so all those things is not considered. So they talk about only the Moore's law is talk about the transistor on the single core processors only. So in that case, so in future, if you see the roadmap of the technology from 1960s to 2014, so here lot of changes has been taken. Started from the 100 micrometer, the feature size, the transistor feature size, it tends to integrate, then becomes like integrating circuit. The number of transistors has been placed over there. Then followed with that, it goes up to 2040. The prediction has been went for atomic level. So that is, so each stage there's a different technology or different region has been interfaced. For example, if you take it 2000 onwards, so there is a technology was imposed, the ITRS roadmap, which showing in the future slides, I will show that. And the transition regions and the quantum, like quantum level as well as the atomic level also. So there are different levels, like even biomolecules, bio applications also can be used in this. And what ITRS says the projection is, whenever the transistor is increasing, what it happens is it's shrinking the number of lines within the ICs. So when it shrinks, what happens is it gets the spaces and it doubles the transistor each every year, as well as sometimes it increases the complexity of the fabrication also. And then the Henry Dennett scaling, what he said, he proposed is, so in 1960s, the Moore's law, 1964, the Moore's law was prediction was came up, and followed with the 1974, Henry Dennett scaling he was predicted like whenever we decrease the feature size and decrease any voltage in the factors in the each transistors, and the transistor keep on increase every year, doubles that, even though the energy consumption is not changed much. So the energy consumption is same as the previous year. So this is what he was proposed in 1974 with the help of the formulation like alpha into CFV square. So that is like a percentage time switching from on to off, the switching time, which is nothing but the alpha is taking as a time period, and then capacitance, the total area, and the frequency response towards the voltage what is required. So whenever the size shrinks in the transistor, the voltage was reduced and the circuit can operate the higher frequency at the same power. So this is what he proposed. But in fabrication, so in the same thing, the fabrication process when we consider, so this is a general fabrication process, like first we do a designing like electronic design automation, which is nothing but the ORCAD. Example, in our college we have a ORCAD. So the ORCAD software was used to design it. So followed with that, once the design is ready, then it go for the mask. So based on the design, what is the mask has been made and the pattern has been printed, like a PN junction, all those things which was printed. And followed with that, we help of the photoresistor will be used, and after that the final chip has been developed. So we'll see more detail about the fabrication process. So the first lithography is nothing but the litho means stone and the graphy means writing. So stone writing process is in another term, Greek name is called it as. And the first transistor was developed in the Bell laboratories, which we always studied in the books, like in 1947. Then later on, the modern technology has been developed on furthermore. And lithography can operate in two principles. One is can be read or storage, like example in a hard disk. Hard disk, we have a spindles over the head. So whenever the spindles rotate and the head is going to touch, it get magnetized. Due to the magnetized, it make a pulses like a 0 and 1s. The data has been stored. In another way, it can used for a optical light source has been used in that, and it can be make it as a structure also design. So in this presentation, we're going to see about the structure designing, that is fabrication process of lithography. So general outline of the fabrication is, first we have a light source. It may be E-beam or the normal optical source or UV rays, whatever. Depends upon the final output, the feature size, we can decide the light source. Then followed with the aperture. So the aperture will generally helpful to decrease the coarse nature to the linear nature with the help of the illumination lens towards the mask. So the mask is the pattern which helps to make it a printed what we required on the wafer. And this is a general outline. And followed with that, the fabrication, we have several steps. So for example, if we see the first one, we start from the wafer cleaning to last, followed with the pre-baking and primer coating and the photoresistance over the coating. Then after coating, we go for the soft baking, then alignment exposure, then post baking exposure, then development, finally the pattern inspection has been developed. And this is basically two categories we can split it, like a PR coating or development stage. So if you're taking a wafer, so generally the wafer is like a, if it's in the silicon wafer, it's a P-type. So over the P-type, we put a oxide layer, and over that we make a polysilicon layers will be placed. So how this thing is happen? So if general silicon wafer is taken up, so then we go for the first cleaning process. So why we go in cleaning processes? To remove the contaminations, and contamination in the sense the wafer have some dust particles which is present from the room atmosphere. So those room atmosphere conditions, particles, contaminations has been removed, and the particulars is nothing but the micron size of the dust is present in that, and the pinholes is nothing but when the fabrication. So as we know, like the granulars is taken from the granulars only, it's chopped it as a silicon wafer. So the silicon wafer, when it's chopped, it has some small pinholes. That is, the small holes will be presented. It maybe have other defects also. When we go for the cleaning process, the holes has been removed, and it will be make more additions for the photoresistance. And this can be obtained by three-step process. One is chemical cleaning, resin, and dry. And we go for the pre-baking. After cleaning, we go for the pre-baking. So in the pre-baking, what is we use is like a primer. So the primer, which will help to make a bonding between the photoresistor and the silicon substrate. So for that only we use a primer. So here you can see that. So pre-baking, so hot plate is there. So hot plate is nothing but the normal like induction stove. So which is helpful to make dry the wafer, and the wafer will make smooth surface and drop the pinholes over there. And follow that we can see the right hand side the primer. So the primer coating here, what we do is normally is so HMDS, so which is nothing but hexamethyl siloxane. So which is nothing but it's a group of the polymer based on the silicon material. So which will help to make to avoid the pinholes, because when you do the previous stage at the wafer cleaning process, the pinholes will be presented on the directly. But when we go with the primer coating and the layers, what about the pinholes will be closed over there, but with the help of the HTMS. And after that, what we do is we go for the photoresist coating. So why we go for the photoresist coating is, so in the silicon wafer, all the places we don't want to make a pattern. So particular place we want to make a pattern, other place we don't want to make a pattern. So in that structure has been developed with the help of the photoresist. So in this case, we can see the photoresist placed over the primer, because the primer is like an additive, like a sticking property which is having between the silicon substrate and the photoresist layer. And the spin coating will be the machine which is going to use it, spin it, and over that we put a droplet of the material of the photoresist. It's like a polymer generally. So the polymer will be coated on the photoresist, and that will be evenly coated with the help of the rotationing of that. So here you can see that the photoresist will be there. Here we have a spin coating machine. So here bottom we have a vacuum pump, which is like a chunk. So the chunk is placed between the in between over the silicon wafer. The silicon wafer will be pumped with the vacuum. So because when you keep on spindle, so the spindle is going on, so the silicon wafer should not come out of the spindle. So to over that, so for that reason, so the vacuum place will be placed on the backside of the silicon to hold the silicon when it's rotating in nature. And here we can see the PR photoresistor dispenser nozzle will be present middle of the silicon wafer, so which is placed on the entire surface. And the spindles keep on rotating, it's keep on the development is taking place on the photoresist on the entire surface of the silicon. But in certain cases in the olden years, like in 1970s, 80s, the people faced a problem is it's going out of the silicon wafer also. So then in 1970s and 1980s and 1990s, the people has invented like a solvent collector, which is nothing but the directly edge bead remover. So that is directly connected with the mechanical force, which is connected directly with the entire surface, edge of the surface. So due to this, what will happen is, so the edge extra solvent has been collected from the solvent, and it will be put it in the outside. But due to this, what happens is the edge is getting damaged because it's a mechanical force has been defined. So to overcome that, the latest technology now the people are using is exposed plate light rays. So it is nothing whether UV rays, exposed optical rays or UV rays will be used, and that will be predicted, and it gives the feedbacks to the spindle and to stop the spinning nature. So this will be helpful to avoid the to extend of the edges. And then finally the photoresist coated is ready. So then we'll go for the soft baking. So the advantage of the soft baking going is, so it evaporates the solvent, which is nothing but the polymer coated on the surface. And after that, what will happen? So the soft baking, we need to predict the temperature. So based on the polymer, the different temperature, for example, PMMA, if you take it, polymethyl methyl acrylate, if you take it, so that will be going up to 150 to 160 degree. If you go behind that, it's like a over baking. So when you go for the over baking, what will happen is it get polymerized, that is less photosensitivity only it will occur. Like if you take a scale and if trying to heat it, or when you bend it, you can see the not in the transparent nature, right? So like that appearance will be presented when you go for the over baking. So when you go for the under baking, what will happen is, so the silicon wafer and the photoresist is not binded so easily, and the adhesiousness is very less. So due to that, easily the PR photoresist coating has been removed from the substrate. So that's why we need to optimize the baking condition and the temperature also determined based on the polymer material choosing on that. And soft baking generally categorized into four different techniques. And here we show the three different pictures. So in the first one is hot plate, which is not like a closed environment. So that is a drawback of the previous years the people was facing in 1970s and 80s. Then over the 80s, the people try to use the conventional oven. So in here we can see there is no oxygen environment present in the environment condition. It is like a closed environment. In that the nitrogen gas will be passed over there and the silicon wafer placed on the inside that, and it will be closed environment. The heating has been drying has been taken place. But in this, what is a problem that people facing is the heater which is used, it's not uniformly distributing the heat. It's only on the surface contact. So for example, bottom surface not on the top surface. The wafer is not heated up. So due to that, the same setup conventional oven is replaced with the IR oven. So the IR oven, what happens is the IR oven, the infrared will be placed on the top of this instead of the bottom surface. So the entire surface has been uniform heating will be taken place. And followed with that, now the latest technology people are using micro oven technique. So it's like a same like a rotating like a normal household, we use a micro oven, the same concept, but we have a chunk over there. So the chunk is connected with the vacuum. So the vacuum will hold the sample, that is silicon, and that silicon will be keep on rotated like a spin coating technique, and the microwave will be penetrated on that. And within few minutes, the drying has been taken place, soft baking. And after soft baking, we have to cool it for the room temperature with the normal condition. We should not go for the higher temperature. So we go for the room temperature condition for cooling. And due to this, what will happen generally is after soft baking, generally it will be the wafer will be taking process like a thermal expansion effect will be taken place. Up to 1 degree changes has been taken. Like for example, if it go with the room temperature and starting from the 152 to room temperature comes. So normally it takes the thermal expansion of the diameter will be taken place with the wafer is 0.5 micrometer will be taken place on the thermal expansion will be taken. And here you can see that, so the silicon wafer is over that we place the photoresist, and over that we placing a mask. So that is the gate mask which we placed over here, and that mask has been decided where the exposure has to be placed, where is not be placed. In the next image here we can see the exposure is placed on that. So here we can see there is a mask where we kept, there is no exposure has been taken place, and other areas the exposure is taken place. So once the exposure is taken place and those areas can be removed, or non-exposed area also can be removed. That are the different two techniques we have, like a positive and negative. And here is exposed place will be removed out. So in the next is again, once exposure is done, we go for the post baking. Once the post baking is done, we go for the etching. Once the etching is, exposed portion will be removed so easily, and non-exposed portion is not removable. So then we can see here the photoresist which we have for polymer resistance PRLB remains. So here we can see that the different types like a negative resist and for positive resist. And the negative resist is nothing but it goes wherever the exposure is taken place, it remains. But the positive resist is wherever the exposure is taken place, it's removed out by using etching concept. So, but the negative resist is cheaper, but it's not very accuratable, and it's not for the better resolution also for the fabrication process. But the people currently, the technology, the people always are using positive photoresist because it is easy to make an etching process to remove the unwanted thing which is exposed on it. Because non-exposed is too difficult to make it etch it, because the etching again will go like isotropic etching, non-isotropic etching. So different cases will be taken place. To avoid that reason, the people going for the positive resist, and over that with the etching nature they'll be going on. And here we can see before photoresist removed, so the PR removed, we can see the top layer that there is a surface, different surface morphology is shown here. And the next image, we can see the smooth surface has been placed over there. So the photoresist has been stripped off by using etching. And we have a different techniques has been used. So in this different techniques, we can see that like alignment exposures, we call it as a tools, which is useful for the fabrication of this device. So one is the contact printing, approximity, projection, and step out. So these are the different printing techniques that people are using for the fabrication of ICs. And the first one is contact printing. Is like here previously we've seen an example like placing a mask over there in the over the substrate, right? The same here we can see here. So the wafer is there, over the wafer the photoresistor will be placed, and over the photoresistor the mask is placed on the surface of the photoresist. So what will happen is, so in this case, when the photoresist is try to removing, when the mask is tried to removing, the photoresist also get damaged over there in the surface, top surface. So due to this, sometimes it may misalign the exposure in pattern over there in below the mask. So due to this reason, the people are not using this after 1970s. And then they went for the approximity, which is nothing but there is a distance between the mask and the photoresistor. There is normal approximately 10 micrometer, 5 to 10 micrometer will be used. And due to this concept, the resolution has been enhanced up to 3 micrometer. So the device which can able to print a transistor which can goes up to 3 micrometer. And this is not a this is like not a contact base. So that's why the photoresist also they have a good lifetime for the etching concept. We go for the actually what pattern we require, we achieved on this. And then we go for the next is projection printing. So in the projection printing, what the compare with the previous one is, the previous one resolution is up to the 3 micrometer only we can go the minimum feature size. But if you want to go less than the feature size of the 3 micrometer, then the people went for the projection printer. So which is nothing but, so exactly 1:1 ratio, that is the 50% of the between the source and the wafer, the mask will be placed, and then it can go to the resolution up to the 1 micrometer of the feature size. The transistor can be developed on these cases. And follow with the stepper one. So in the stepper one, we can see that, so the stepper one have a before and after the mask, like we can say mask as a little also. So before and after the mask, we have a place the projection lens, which is helps to make to confine the 5:1. Like for example, the 5 centimeter of the transistor design can able to print it on the 1 centimeter of the scale size. So with the help of the projection lens, we can use that the miniature feature size can be obtained, and up to 0.25 micrometer, it can able to print it on this. So it's a very expensive technique, but the current technology that people are using on this technique only. For example, if we have a core processors like Intel core processor, quantum processors, which we have right now. So all those technique processors are developed on this technology on the stepper one. And but when you go with the stepper one, the people facing a problem is when you go less than the 90 nanometer technology, again there is a problem faced. For example, here you can see the target one. So the target is looks like this, the designed in the EDA tool, but when you're trying to print it, it's not exactly the same print. It's not printed on the wafer. So what the people tried is they go with the technology called like resolution enhancement technique, which is nothing but RAT we call it as. So RAT will helps to make the print what we require the target, similar kind of thing. So below the what do you mean by RAT? So what RAT does is it's like approximate correction will be placed on the before the projection mask. So what it does is the design which we making design is instead of making this kind of design like actual design what we make it on the left hand side, it's printed actually. But when you go with the approximative printing, so what will it make it? So in the curve, it's like when you have a turning point, the turning point goes deep, still deep inner. So there is no uniform surface has been placed on the edges. So due to this, we can achieve the exactly what we require on the wafer. So this is called the OPC, that is the optical approximate correction with the help of the RAT, one of the technique which we use here. And so even though when we go with those techniques, the people still facing the problem is they cannot go with the less than the certain nanometer level. So there is a technology which we need to go higher of the technology, like which can able to print it on the further fabrication process. So in that cases, when we see the revolution has been taken place in different strategies, like 1771, the textile has been make a more in the technology, because the people start wearing the clothes. So then the communication, like transportation is taken place, like railroads and automobiles. Then the technology has been start implementing, like computers. Then now the people using is nanotechnology. So this is the emerging technology which is assisting the VLSI. So what it does is, so nanotechnology, what do we mean by nanotechnology? So the nanotechnology, simple example we can see here is, here we can see the total surface, there is a one cube which we placed on the here. So 1 centimeter cross 1 centimeter, there is a cube was presented. So which is, I think, with the total surface area is like a 6 centimeter square. But when we try to make this cube into 1 mm cubes, then we can see that the cubes has been increased the surface area like a 60 centimeter square. But when you try to make the cubes again into lesser dimension, like blocks of lesser dimension, like 1 nanometer cubes, then you can see that we can able to cover the entire surface is like around the football ground level. You can able to cover it. So that, so what it means is, when you go with the size decreasing of the material, like the patterning material, or when you go with the material point of view, it can increase the surface area. So that is the advantage of the nanotechnology, the people going for the VLSI technique. So the transistor has been printed in the nano size level. So they can increase the surface area. So they can make it, n number of transistors can be printed on the same area. So next one is how the different approaches can be emerged on going with the nanotechnology. So we can start from the atomic level to, we can bring it to the nano level, or we can start from the bulk material to nano level. So that is, for example, the physical coating methods. So physical coating methods means, like as we seen earlier, like e-beam lithography techniques, or physical vapor deposition. So those techniques will be helpful. Like it's the material which starts from the millimeter or micrometer and goes to nanometer. But in the chemical method approaches which we done in the first year chemistry, like a salt analysis, or the preliminary, all those chemical approach which we done in the chemistry lab, like it starts from the molecule. So those molecule can develop and to make it. So molecule is nothing but the molecules and the atom levels only. So those atom levels and the molecules can convert it and develop furthermore by using the chemical approach. It can go up to the nanometer scale size. These are called as a chemical method approach. So these two methods only the people are using. But when you go with this VLSI technique for the fabrication process, the people always go with the physical method, like a lithography method or thin film methods that people are going with. But even though when we go with the nanotechnology assisted in level also, here we can see different graphs what's presented by the Intel corporations. So here we can see from 1970s, the transistors keep on increasing year by year. But we can see parallelly, the clock speed also increase up to certain level, but after that saturated due to the power dissipation. So the thermal power is the major role over there when we increase the number of transistors as well as the number of core processors also. So this is the what the people was facing, as well as when we increase the number of processors, what happened in each processors require different clock cycles with respect to the power rating also. So that's why, so here we can see the example like different generations of the processor with respect to the efficiency. So starts from 1978, 25% of the efficiency in a year the processor can make in the single processor. Here means even though we consider as a multi-core processor, we take as a single processor only as an example for overall. So from 1986 to 2003, we can see the 52% of the efficiency has been given by the single processors. But the problem is more thermal performance, design has been established on that. Due to that, the performance has been again, it's decreasing for the lifetime. So when your lifetime is decreased, the processors, it's not run for the market for longer time. So that's why the people try to move it with the multi-core processor from 2003 onwards. So different core processors like parallel processing has been taken place. Instead of the single processor, they go with the multi-cores. So one processor can able to start running the task, and parallel another process can able to process the data which is required, like a parallel pipelining concept. Multi-threading can be done. And here is the example, like Henry Dennis was said that previously in the introduction which we seen, Henry Dennis was saying, even the number of transistors keep on increase, the power is not changed. But it was failed in 2000 onwards. So what 2002 onwards, 2003 onwards, what the people have found it is, so the single core Henry scaling approach was done. So whenever they keep on increasing, but after 2003, what happened is when we go for the multi-core processors, it was not applicable because the reason is the Henry scaling approach was not predictable for is not considering the current leakages and heat dissipations. So the thermal runaways is not considering. So due to that, what happened again, increasing the energy cost. So again, different energy is required. For example, if you take a Walden CPUs, single core processors required the 1 volt or for example, 1 for 100, like consider 1 is like 100% of the voltage is required means 100% of the frequency, 100% of the performance is given. When we go with the new CPU processor and the later of 1980s, so 1 cross 1, the power is like a 3.3. So more power is required later on. And when we go with the multi-core processors, so 2 core is there means the voltage and the frequency is lesser, but the power is also lesser, but the efficiency is higher. So it means, so the Henry scaling approach, it fails to prove it and it's breakdown from the 2003 onwards in the VLSI technology. And what does is when we go with the technology, like here we can see the graphical representation. So in this graphical representation, we can see red and brown. So then the red one shows about the technology improvement in the nanoscale level, and the brown one shows about the red one shows about the energy, and the brown one shows about the technology in the nanoscale. So starts from the 180 nanometer of the transistor to up to 20 nanometer, less than 20 nanometer of the nanometer scale of the transistor, the power is keep on increased. So if you can start from the 180 nanometer, the power is less than 0.5 is required, but per area nanosquare, which we're talking about. But when you keep on increase the number of transistors on the particular of nano level, so then the power is keep on increase parallelly. So what happened? So in this case, so again, the people facing the problem of power constraints. So the 3 challenges has been come up in the 2006 onwards. What are the 3 challenges is, like the first one is, so technology wise, it's when you talk about ending of the Dennis scaling. This Dennis scaling is not further improved, and due to the problem reason is the power has been key constraint. So the power is the major problem. And the architecture, when you take up the architecture, so Andam's law says about the parallel processing of the data. So when you go with the multi-core processors, so the parallel data processing is not viable because each parallel core processing data is possible, but the parallel line implication for the parallel level of the instruction is not much possible in the multi-core era. So that is a way. So the architecture also we need to be considered. It have a limitations in Adam's law. And when you go for the application point of view, from the desktop to now the latest technology, IoT devices or mobile devices, we need to consider all the upcoming technology also when we design the transistors. So in these cases, so when we go with the flexible electronics, so when we go with the flexible electronics, we generally categorize into 3 different applications, like IoT and mobile applications, like healthcare applications and the smart cities. So in these 3 cases, all 4 categories, like one is like a communication, there is integrating circuit and data management and energy. And communication, which is nothing but if you take a wireless flexible electronics, the mobile to the cloud and the cloud to data. So like that communications are one processor to another processor, like a Bluetooth sharing the Wi-Fi devices, the communication. And integrating circuit, which we see right now, the number of the transistors which is placing on keep on increasing within the single chip. And the data management, which shows about the management in the cloud based, and the energy. To control all this, we can compromise each other in about 3, but we cannot compromise the energy, because the energy is a major role for to drive in the all 3 component in the above categories. So for that reason, so in our lab, we started with the energy power applications we worked on our lab. So when we take in our lab, what we do is, so in our lab, we take a heat and we converting as a electrical power. So which is nothing but the thermoelectric, like a thermal energy can be converted into electrical energy. So the basic phenomena of this is nothing but Seebeck effect. So the Seebeck effect, which we studied in schooling times, like we know hot junction and cold junction. So the difference of that it can generate the electrical power. So for example, delta T. So the difference between the hot junction and cold junction, we call it as delta T, the gradient of temperature. So the gradient of temperature which can generate the electrical potential, which is nothing but the electromagnetic force, generally we call it as. But in thermoelectric point of view, we call it as a thermoelectromagnetic force, TMF, we call it as. And the benefit of going this technology is, so the heat can convert it as electrical power, because the major advantage when you compare with the solar or any other technology, in this technology, the environmental friendly. It's not produce any harmful nature to the environment when fabrication process also. And when you go for the maintenance point of view also, it's minimal, because once the device is prepared, it's not required to keep on maintenance like a solar cell. So because the solar, we need to maintain like a cleaning on the surface. If the dust is more moisture is present, or more dust is present on the surface, the optical absorption cannot be absorbed more easily. So, and when you go with the solar, it required, or when you go with the hydrothermal, or when you go with the other technologies, it required some noises will be produced. But when you go with the thermoelectric, it's noise free and vibration free also. And the thermoelectric applications can be converted into two different fields, like a power generation and sensors. But in our laboratory, we're working on the power generations. So what we generally do is like from the body heat. So the devices which you have mobile phones or the watches, everything based on our body surface, right? When you put it on the pocket or when you hold it on the body hand. So whatever, everything is based on the body heat surface only. So due to that, what we do is, so we tap the heat from the body and convert the electrical power and give it to the cycling of the mobile phone or the watches to charge it. So that is what our application we're working on. Here the images shows here. So not all the body place, it's not give the same power, because we know that in the forehead it have a different temperature, in arm it have a different temperature, and foot have different temperature. So each part of the body also can able to have a different temperature that can generate a different power also. And not only that, even when we go with different activity, if you're taking a sleeping, or when you go with a standing or sitting, or when you do with a more activity, it can generate more power. That in the sense, heat can be dissipated. Example, we can see when we go for a running, we can get a sweating. So that is nothing but the heat is dissipated out. So when the heat dissipate out, so the power can be generated more higher in the compared with the idle case. So that's why we started with the power generation with the body heat itself. And this is our example of in postdoc time. So in long years back, we done with our senior group. So joint course business done. What we done is, here we can see here is, first we use a screen printing technique, which is nothing but the physical approach method. So they're making it. So here we can see like a Bi2Te and Sb2Te, which is nothing but bismuth telluride and antimony telluride. These are the two materials like a P-type and N-type. So over the fabric, so normal cloth is taken, and over the cloth they're making a PN junction. So over the PN junction, so the fabrication is done with the help of the screen printing technique. So finally the device is developed like this, and which is can generate from the body heat. The power is 2.9 volt can be generated, millivolt can be generated from the body heat alone. So if you see the fabrication process like here, so the first we'll make it like an electrode plating in the silicon wafer, and over the silicon wafer the electrode is done. Then we'll make a PN junction formation like P-type, N-type, P-type, N-type. Alternately we make a PN junction, and once the PN junction is formed, the top and bottom plates will be closed each other like a sandwich manner. Once the sandwich manner is placed, then we go for the PDMS, because so we can see here in between the PN junction, we have in between, we don't have any filling, that is empty spaces presented. When we go for a device, when you try to bend it, so it should have something filling on the in between the PN junction. Otherwise, whatever the P-type, N-type will be misaligned from its originality place. So that is the reason we go with the PDMS polymer material, which is going to be placed in between of the PN junction. So when it's coated on that, so finally we go with the device is presented on here, and we go with the nickel etching, which is nothing with the current collector will be acting as in the surface device. And finally we etching the nickel. Unwanted nickel surface has been removed like previous fabrication process as we shown. So once it's done, so then the device is ready. So like a previous which we shown. So the device looks like this. So once the device is ready, so this device we have a certain drawbacks, again we faced it. So what is it can generate the power can be 40 milliwatt can be generated with the help of the room temperature of 31 Fahrenheit. But when we try to bend it, the device, so when you keep on bend the device, it can go up to 120 times only, not more than that. So it's lose its life property. So that's why the people still working on to increase the lifetime of the bendability of the each devices. So then for the another laboratory, they started in Xinjiang University in China. They started so developing on the flexible circuit. So in the flexible like PCB design, it over that they're making a thermoelectric device. So here we can see over this we can make it again. They're making as a PN junction, like as previously shown. They make a PN junction, then the polymer material has been filled it and over the flexible circuit and designed. So finally here they can bend it up to 30 mm and the device can able to bend up to 30 mm. B and C image can show the bendability of the device. Compared with the previous R device, this device can able to bend it up to 30 mm for more longer time because of the backbone of the PCB circuit was designed. And as I shown you in the example previously, based on the activity of the body, the power can be generated. So that was implemented by North Carolina State University. So they developed the device from the body heat. Here you can see, so the device was placed on over the t-shirt. So the device can place it and you can see the image shows based on the normal condition that depends upon the time period, the power is increased. And the other image, the graphical representation shows about, so one is the wrist, so based on the body place where we kept it. So the first image like power versus time, which shows about the based on the outside environment, the air condition. So when we go with the walking or jogging, so based on the activity, the power can increase it. The other images like a power versus air velocity, which shows about the based on the placing of the body. When you place on the chest, it can goes up to the around 9 microvolt can generate. And when you go with the wrist or when you go with the upper arm, it can generate up to 50. So based on the placing of the body, based on the environmental condition also, the power can be generated higher. So this has been proved with the help of the thermoelectric generator. And the next one, the recent work on this here, the people has developed is like a thin film based devices. So in this, we can see the same like a thermal operation. So here we can see like a mask. The mask below that there is a instead of silicon, here they're using a PET material. So the PET material was placed over that the wafer has been placed, and over that you can see like mask has been placed, and then the material has been coated on P-N junction. So the green and the violet color has been shown, like a P-N junction has been formed, and the gray color is nothing but the electrodes. So the electrode is connected with the pi-type connection. So we can see it's like, so the thermal heat can be in a parallel, the electron transport in the series nature. So like a pi-type connections, it has been transferred. So in this image B, we can see the thin film has been developed. And here we can see in the first image of the bottom of A image, 5.3 milliwatt has been generated from the body heat. But when you go with the watches, the generation is a millivolt, but it's depend. As I said earlier, it's based on the room environment condition. The temperature will vary. So to vary the temperature, we need a constant power to produce further to operate the watch. So for that reason, what the people is made it, they made an intermediate circuit to make it like a DC to DC converter, which helps to make a buck boost conversion. And over that, we make a capacitor, which can, when the storage is taken place, and over there, the wristwatch is connected over there. So this setup is connected and running the watch without any battery. So it can connect it directly with the body heat itself. The power can be generated and given to the watches. And in our lab, what we decided, so we are working on the fabric based, as I shown in the like the layer by layer, like a one layer is a P type, other the red is P type, green type is like N type. In between, we have insulator material and like a PN junctions has been made it, and like a stack like this. The stack power can be generated. In the another way, what we done is, instead of previous images, we showed like electrodes, copper electrodes, we replacing with the carbon, like we replacing with the conducting fabric like a carbon, nickel, silver, different fabrics we developing, and we replacing the, instead of normal grade, we replacing the flexible fabric. So due to this, so in our laboratory, we developed it, the body heat with the 4 leg. But previously we can see, and these are the legs we call it as. So like example, in the previous images I shown you, like the first one in the case lab, has been developed like a 12 legs for 2.9 millivolt. But here we developed the 4 legs for 2.2 millivolt power has been generated. And we tried with the different heating temperature also. Here is the example. We can see the hot plate is presented. That temperature is around room temperature is 28.1, and this hot plate temperature is 35 degree, and the difference is like around 7 degree. So difference of 7 degree, the power can generate 2.8 millivolt power can be generated. And here is we tied with the body heat, and tied the demonstration has been taken place at 30 degree with the help of room temperature and the body heat around the 1 degree difference of temperature. It can generate the 2.0 millivolt. And this device is developed with a different material, and this device is developed with a different material. So it depends upon the different material also, the power can increase. So that we try to show here. And so our collaborative researchers are like the people are working with our jointly, we working with these people are helping us for the device making. And the funding agencies for us is like from India, and out of India also the people are helping us for our research laboratory to develop the devices. So thank you. And so if you have any doubts and any questions, so we can discuss it now. So the first question, it's like, what are the opportunities available in the VLSI industry for freshers, and how the students equip themselves to get into VLSI core industry? So as I shown you the example, there are different aspects of the industries. VLSI is not only for chip manufacturing. Even other than that, there are different industries VLSIs keep on working, like communications industry, and even the cloud-based IoT devices, VLSI industry is required. Even the power management, VLSI is required. So all the industries is required. And if you go with LinkedIn jobs, you can see, even if you choose a LinkedIn jobs India, you can see a lot of opportunities VLSI based on the core, not only VLSI, even core based electronic engineers, how much the people wanted. Even a lot of internship opportunities also keep on available in the LinkedIn jobs. You can just find a LinkedIn jobs. You can see many people is posting over there direct from the company itself. So it's more helpful for you to join directly with the connection with them.
Thank you, Pandirajan. I think that's all for the queries. I could see one raised hand.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Just check. No, I don't think any more questions. Thank you so much, Pandirajan. It was a very useful explanation about the trends and all the applications of VLSI. Thank you very much. And over to Neetu for vote of thanks.
I would like to thank Dr. Pandirajan Veluswamy, DST Inspire faculty in EC department, IIT DM Kanchipuram, for his valuable talk on challenges and opportunities of emerging technology for VLSI. Sir, the session gave us a lot of insight on the advancements, challenges, and opportunities in VLSI. Also, I would like to thank our management, principal, and HOD ma'am for all the support provided for well conduct of the webinar.
Thank you. So thank you all. So thank you, ma'am. So for HOD and Dean ma'am, like VP ma'am, for giving opportunity to share our research laboratory works. And thank you for the participants for all. And if you have any doubts or any clarification terms or anything, so you can write us email. So we can touch with an email. We can give it.
You share your email ID, Pandirajan.
Yeah, ma'am. I displayed here. I will share in chat also.
Yeah, one more time. Maybe.
Yeah, sure. I will share in chat also. So the major problem in VLSI is power dissipation. So if the people focus on the power dissipations, and so those sectors is more needed in real-time industry right now. So people can focus on the power-based approaches in VLSI industry.
Thank you, Pandirajan. Thank you so much.